Hello, my name is Sasha Tatil and today we are talking about 5 tips for offshore outsourcing to India. More and more companies are planning to outsource some of their development to India. Sometimes it's web agencies or marketing agencies, sometimes it's IT departments or IT software developers, software development companies who produce products and want to build an additional team in India. And today we are going to discuss 5 tips how you can do it in a more efficient way. So there are a few things to consider when doing this, and one is selecting the right collaboration model. The different models will be discussed later in the presentation. Agile Teams, Offshore Development Center, or the dedicated model. Then the different pricing models we can have, like Agile, Waterfall, value-based pricing, or dedicated developer model. And then you should also make sure that the thing is transparent, like the hiring process, who works on what, for example, what kind of developer level or senior or junior level developers are working on it, or whether it is a close collaboration, and whether you need a focused partner, for example, specialized partner or a subject matter expert, or whether those are senior developers, and what kind of approach it is, whether it's a consulting approach. And of course it is important to select the right partner and also have proper goals, like whether you are planning for cost reduction, or whether you want to be able to have access to another job market like the Indian one, or you have higher quality development services. That's a few goals you can decide upon. Let's go right into it. So first, if you are planning to do offshore outsourcing to India, then you should decide upon the proper collaboration models. So one option would be to go with Agile Teams. So for example, if you're in an IT department and are planning to build some new software, some ERP solution, which needs to be updated, for example SAP or a Java based system needs to be updated, then you might need an Agile team. The good thing is the quality will be very high, and they might be able to give you the same output as a Western team from US or from Europe. But the problem is the price will be about the same what you would pay in a Western world. So it is less for cost savings and more for high quality development and maybe building larger teams with the high standard, because these kind of teams you might not be able to get in Europe or in USA, where you might not be able to build teams with 10, 100 or maybe more than 1,000 developers at a time. And in India that's possible with companies like Wipro or Infosys, which can build large teams. Another option are so-called Offshore Development Centers. So that is also for large teams, but here the IT company in India would not do the project management and all. The IT company would only provide the infrastructure, the hiring procedure, and in the infrastructure, for example the computers and so on, and also of course the salary payments and so on. That's something which we also offer, like we build teams with maybe 10 or 20 people in offshore development centers. You can approach us and we will help you hire developers here in India and build larger teams, for example in Java or in PHP or in Python or in any other technology you might require. But what a lot of companies also do from Europe or US is they have a dedicated developer. For example, they ask companies like UHero to search for a PHP Laravel developer, and we will look here in the local market for that kind of a developer, and we will make sure that the client can interview that developer, and then we will in the end hire that developer, and they will work out of our premises in India. Because of the corona situation, it might be now out of their home office, and this way you can build a smaller team, maybe 1, 2 or maybe 3 people, or maybe up to 5 people. Some people even hire more people than that, but then it goes more into the direction of an offshore development center. There are also different pricing models in offshore outsourcing, and let's have a look at that. For example, the first thing is agile pricing. So basically, if you have an agile team in India, they will make sprints of, let's say, up to 30 days. That means 1 month. And they will check, okay, maybe they have 5 developers, 2 designers, 1 front-end developer, and 1 database developer, 1 project manager, 1 agile team lead. And they check how much time each person needs. They have a hourly rate, maybe let's say $50 per hour or $70 per hour, and they calculate how much this will cost. Maybe it will cost like $50,000 per month for the first sprint, and then the next month the new sprint will be calculated, because maybe more developers are needed or less developers are needed, or more designers are needed, and so on. And so that pricing changes from month to month. But the good thing is, like, we can transparently see how much people are working, and only the work hours are actually billed. But the issue is, of course, that the prices are almost as high as what you would pay in Europe or in USA. Then the waterfall method or fixed price model is something a lot of companies prefer, but in my opinion there's a lot of companies which fail with this. There's some studies like the Chaos report which say that around 50% of or more projects are failing. That means the budget is not kept, or the project takes much more longer time than was agreed upon. So the waterfall method is, I would say, only good if you have a very small project, for example, small website with 5 pages, and that way the developer in India or the development team in India knows how much time it might take to develop. But for larger projects, I would not recommend a waterfall or fixed price model. Value-based pricing is something some companies also do, or some freelancers do. Is like they will check with the client, okay, how much value is created. For example, with the website, with a good website and like a 50% higher conversion rate, the client might be able to have an additional turnover of maybe $500,000 per year, and the developer would say, okay, 20% of that value created for this specific year we will take as our commission or our fee for development. And if it's $500,000, it would be like $100,000 for the development. But the advantage, of course, for the client is that every year the client will have an additional revenue or additional profit of $500,000, and only $100,000 is billed for the same. And the good thing about value-based pricing is also that it can be made sure that actually it is developed what is required, and the developer or the development team does not have to look at each rupee or each US dollar for development, but can go a very creative route in creating this solution. But of course, if it comes to India, a lot of companies always think about price reduction. So maybe the agile pricing or the waterfall pricing might be more not appropriate, but that is mostly wished for because of the price reduction when thinking about outsourcing to India. And then there's the dedicated developer model, which we are offering. It is more of a lower pricing, but the idea behind it is that it's long term, right? We are hiring, for example, for web agencies and marketing agencies, developers in India, and they will work for them for not only few months but actually many years. So we take the salary of the developer plus a fee on top per month. So that is very attractive for web agencies and marketing agencies who always have new web developments, website projects, app development projects, and so on, and actually need a dedicated person or someone who always is available, and they are basically more like an employee of them than an outsourced person. In offshore outsourcing, in my opinion, it's very important to be transparent on how a company works. So basically the client should know who works on what. Are those senior developers mainly who work on the project? What is the name of those developers? And what are the name of those developers? Are they really good at what they're doing? Did they do some larger projects before so that they're actually able to do it? Or does the company in India work more out of a black box? So basically the client in Europe or in US will give the project to India and no one actually knows who works on what. So that's less ideal. So I would always suggest to discuss with the with the company in India closely and find out who's actually working on the project. And in some cases, like in Yuhiro's case, we also help in hiring the developers. So basically we say, okay, we are that transparent that you can actually go with us through the hiring process, and then we hire the developer. But basically this is only possible if it's dedicated developer model and not agile teams, because in agile teams usually the teams are already available in the companies in India, and they just take resources like maybe 5 hours from a senior developer here and a designer for 2 hours and so on, and actually the teams will work on several different projects. And it's always good to have a close collaboration model, basically where the team from India might be able to go to US or Europe or Germany and visit the teams there and discuss in detail or get to know each other. It's not only about development, but also to come to a human level of communication, and maybe also have video calls. And this kind of close collaboration is always good, and also something which is more into the dedicated developer model or offshore development center. But agile teams can also try to implement these things as good as possible. And like I said, it's better to avoid the black box development model where basically someone from Europe says, okay, I will give you the requirement, you just develop and send it back. And there's not much interaction during the development. So basically usually what happens is the client will send something, and maybe the client even has in detail explained what he wants, but in the end he gets something completely else. There are many memes out there about software development where the project manager understands something, the client says something else, and the developer completely does understand something else. So this black box model is very bad. So basically it's better to either have like an agile team which meets with the client from time to time, or a developer model, a dedicated developer model where maybe daily there's a half an hour or 15 minutes exchange on how the development is going on, and where the client can also have a daily checkup or maybe a weekly look into the code, what is going on, what could be improved, and so on. So high level of transparency is always good in offshore outsourcing development. And it's always good to look for focused partners. So instead of looking for companies who can do everything like search engine optimization, backend development, front-end development, video creation, and so on, you should look for specialized partners. For example, an offshore outsourcing partner who only looks at, for example, Magento and e-commerce, right? So that team always works on Magento projects, so you can know, okay, these guys are very specialized and they can deliver a good output. For example, we as a dedicated developer partner, we are specialized in providing, for example, PHP Laravel developers or Cent developers or ASP.NET developers, but the focus of us is like hiring the right people and providing them to web and marketing agencies. So that is our specialization, and we are less into custom software development for companies. So we more are on the HR side. We provide the developers, but you should look what you're planning to do, because a subject matter expert can also consult the client, meaning that if it's a Magento expert, for example, they can say, okay, if you do this, we can improve the site speed, we can reduce the cost, we can make the online shop more high quality. And that's the advantage of subject matter experts. And for example, Yuhiro is the expert in hiring good developers. So we are doing that around 10 years. So that's two things, specialized partners and also subject matter experts which actually can help you in hiring people and also in telling you which way is better. And you should also make always sure that actually there are good developers in the teams you are hiring from India or outsourcing to, because there are companies in India who only have maybe one senior developer and everyone is a junior developer with 1 year experience or fresh out of university, and they are good, but the problem is they tend to produce bad code, and that's also why there's such a bad reputation sometimes for India. So basically you need to select the right partner so that there's also a good level of senior developers which can actually build highly scalable software, and also which is maintainable and also is very well documented. And like I said, it should be like a consulting approach. Of course, if you are an IT consultant yourself, or a web agency or a marketing agency, of course, in your specific field, you might be the better person, and you might need consulting. But there are still things, for example, in India, if you are hired, there are certain things which you need to be take care of, and like a specialized partner like Hero can help find good developers in the local Indian market. And also you should, before you offshore outsource to India, you should have a goal. I mean, what is the goal? Is it like, for example, cost reduction? It means like you don't have much budget and you want to reduce the cost. For example, if you're a startup and you have got funding from like a venture capitalist, but you don't have that much budget to hire like people in the Silicon Valley for like $200,000 a year, but you want to spend less than that, then like cost reduction could be a plan. Also, marketing and web agencies also try to reduce cost by outsourcing to other countries like Pakistan or India. Other people like maybe larger IT companies, but also web agencies, they might have difficulties to hire good developers in their region. For example, if they are based in New York and they're competing with large companies like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or other companies, or maybe Tesla for software developers, and these smaller companies, they are maybe not able to hire these people, then they could look at India actually to build an offshore development center or to build a dedicated team of developers and have it easier to hire people. So those are the first two options, either cost reduction, or maybe you are not finding developers and you want them to hire in other places of the world, and especially in countries like India, you can actually find a lot of developers. Or your goal could be to have a higher quality of development, because you might need 100 developers or 1,000 developers for a very large banking project, and you don't get all the developers in Europe, or this quantity of good developers is not available. Then you could look at India and look for top IT companies who can provide the best agile teams and complement your team in your local team, and thus producing a higher quality of output. Or your goal could be to be able to develop 24/7. For example, if you have a team in China, a team in India, and a team in South America, then you would be almost able to develop around the clock, because when it is daytime in Brazil, it is nighttime in India, and if it's daytime in India, then it's daytime in Brazil. So basically, if you have development centers all over the world, you could make sure to develop all the time. So here also an overview or how to select the right partner. Avoid going for the lowest price, because if you look for outsourcing partners in India, don't go for the lowest price, because usually that won't be the way to get good people. If you want to get good people, usually they have a good price, because if you studied business or business studies, then you know that in the market there's a demand and also there's a supply. So demand and supply, and usually that leads to a higher price. So if you are going below that price, usually there's something wrong. Maybe the development team is not good, or they're not getting projects because they don't deliver quality to their clients. So these people you should avoid. You should actually go always for quality instead of price. Of course, if you go for India, of course, you can expect to get maybe a 30-40% price reduction, but still the price should not be the main focus. And you should select a partner according to the goal you want to achieve. For example, if you want to have high quality, then of course go with agile teams which are specialized in something specific, for example e-commerce, or maybe in banking software, or something like that, specialized agile teams. And if you want to go for low cost and high transparency, then go for something like a dedicated developer model, where you have companies like ours, like Yuhiro, who would hire actually developers in India and would provide them to you. You would work with them closely, and of course you would have a higher cost reduction, because it is usually very attractive. Here also three key takeaways which you can take from this presentation, which is web and marketing agencies usually work best in the dedicated developer model, because usually they have an IT team in their local place, for example in Europe or in US or in Japan or wherever, and they just need additional resources or additional developers. For that, this dedicated developer model works fine, and is also from the price value it's also very good, and also from the quality it is much higher. And IT departments of large organizations, they should rely on agile teams, because IT departments usually don't want to do all the work themselves. Usually maybe they want to do the project management, maybe the quality assessment and stuff, but the whole development and the sprints, the monthly structuring of the development can be done by the agile team. And for those, you can go for agile teams. And if a very small project where it's, for example, a WordPress website which is done with a template, and where plugins, premium plugins are used, which can be bought for like $40-50, then you can go for waterfall or fixed price, where you decide on the price beforehand. So thank you for attending this presentation, and as I said, these are some tips you should definitely consider when offshore outsourcing to India, because there's many pitfalls. Usually I would say a good percentage of projects fail, and there will be always negative blog articles or forums, or in YouTube some videos where they complain about software development in India. But still, software development in India is like a 180 billion US dollar market currently, which means that there are many success stories, many good developers, many good agile teams, many good senior software developers, many good junior developers. So you should make sure to go with the advice given in this presentation. If you have more questions, you can just ask in the comments below, or you can also shoot us an email to info@yuhiro-global.com. Thank you so much.